With former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State during the Obama administration, Joel Rubin. He's also the author of the briefing book on Substack. Joel, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, Morris.
So if we're anticipating proposals from Iran about a potential nuclear deal in the next 2 weeks, but we're also going to potentially see some kinetic action in the next 10 days, which comes first?
Well, you know, Boris, this right now is the most coercive moment regarding American diplomacy towards Iran that we've ever seen. We have not had a military force arrayed against Iran like this while negotiations have been underway ever. So we'll see if the Iranians decide that President Trump is serious. And I think the real question is, are they willing to do what he is asking? Because if they go back for consultations in Tehran for new proposals, it means they're trying to figure out how to keep the infrastructure for their nuclear program. And for President Trump, he's argued that's not on the table.
Yeah, speaking of trying to keep that infrastructure, I mentioned the satellite images of the fortification of several nuclear facilities. Does that tell you anything about their diplomatic disposition?
It tells you that they want to keep that program. And it tells you that diplomatically they don't want to give it up. And that's the real problem here. I have to say also, stepping back, we didn't get here out of the blue. The last several weeks of buildup are frankly because of the mass slaughter of Iranian civilians by the regime in Iran. Tens of thousands were killed in cold blood just for peacefully protesting. So now President Trump moved troops there for that reason, moved our forces there for that reason. But the Iranians, they seem to want to keep their nuclear program as the highest priority. And I think that that's the real danger, is that while the president came in with force for protecting the civilians, he may really focus on eliminating the program. And the Iranians are possibly willing to take that strike.
And I mean, does that necessitate regime change? Do you see that as a potential outcome, a likely outcome?
That's the big debate that people are having right now. Is regime change truly the goal, or is it eradication of the program and the missile program, as well as other issues related to Iranian support for proxies? I don't think you can negotiate with this regime and expect it to maintain a peaceful posture on its nuclear program and its missile program without clear, strong verification. But a regime change policy without a day after scenario also is incredibly difficult. And if we aren't going to put boots on the ground, and I'm not advocating we do, we don't have real control over what happens inside the country. So this may all be posturing for the negotiations to try to get the Iranians to give up their nuclear infrastructure. But that said, that is the core target, is to try to make sure that they do not have that nuclear capacity.
We're anticipating that Secretary of State Rubio is going to visit Israel next week and meet with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Talk to us about Israel's function in all of this. They clearly want some action against Tehran.
Well, the prime minister has wanted regime change in Iran for pretty much his entire political career. And so there's no surprise in where he's trying to push this discussion. He doesn't have any faith that the Iranian regime will ever be negotiated with, and going back to the nuclear deal that President Obama struck. But I think the Israelis are willing to watch and wait to see what President Trump does this time. They weren't in June of last year. The Israelis struck first, and then the president followed on appropriately with his strikes. But I think that we're seeing coordination now, and this is one of the assets that Israel brings to the table, is intelligence and the ability to target on the ground. And any strikes, if they take place by the United States, we're going to have to learn where to strike, and the Israelis are very helpful in that.
And if there are any strikes, there are going to be economic ramifications, no doubt, given just the outsized proportion of oil that flows through the Strait of Hormuz. What is it going to be felt like for people around the world?
Yeah, Boris, that was one of the big fears of the June war last year, that it would spike prices in oil markets, that we would have an American military presence on the ground in perpetuity, that there would be many other secondary negative effects. Those did not happen. So it's not clear that that would happen again either. If the strikes, for example, go after the nuclear program and the leadership, but not the other economic infrastructure, it's quite possible that there could be a day after, just like what we saw with Venezuela, where while Maduro was taken out, nothing else was destroyed. So this transition question, the policy objective overall, but the transition is part of the policy, it needs to be laid out. This is one area where I think the president would do himself a favor, and all of us, if he were to propose it to Congress, to get them to at least debate it, weigh in on it in the near term, to be open with the American people about what his policy objective is.
That's an important point. Where is Congress in all of this? Joel Rubin, thanks so much for the perspective.
Thanks, Boris.
Yep.